그건가 맨 처음에 생각났어. Sieltä kun ei voi. Se kun liikaa oli ei napannut järjellä. Miten niille? Over there. Just it's a hell. Is it a
Welcome, Representative Council meeting. Opening the meeting at 5:29. And moving to item, opening the meeting, let's move to item 2. Regarding members and deputy members of the council who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned and present. Thank you. Chair, as before, we will perform the roll call. Anyone else? Do you know if someone's coming from your group? Yes, Pollari is coming at 6. And Luja next. Anyone present from Luja? And Luova. Anyone whose name wasn't mentioned? We have 23 members of the council present. Thank you. Yes. Moving to item 3, regarding the lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. We have 23 representatives present. This is less than the requirement of 25 representatives. So I propose that we would go through the items on the agenda as normal, but make a decision list of them to the next meeting when we have quorum, because we cannot make the actual decisions here. Yes, and we have to go through these things again in the next meeting. Yes, let's set the microphone over there. Thank you. On the general level, we can do this. But the special items 8, 9, and 10, I think we need to handle them again in the next meeting when we have quorum. These are such important items. Yes, and if at some point we reach this threshold of 25 representatives, then we can make the decisions already at this meeting. Then we have quorum. Closing item 3, moving to item 4, election of 2 persons approving the minutes and 2 vote counters. Any proposals or volunteers? vote counters. Propose Huttunen. Yes, thank you. Yes, we have selected both counters and persons approving the minutes. Let's move to item 5, approval of the agenda. The agenda has been sent to you via email. Don't have anything to add or comment on it? Apparently no. And this meeting is chaired by the first vice chair of the Representative Council. A point of order, but the interpreter could not hear what it was. Closing on the 5, moving to item 6, announcements. Any announcements to make, Pielman? Thank you. I'd like to announce that Vappu is here soon, and also that the cleaning bee for the Tekkari village will be on Saturday, so ask everyone to take part in cleaning up our village and spending time together. And then we'll have the after party on the next day, on the 13th. Or the 23rd, yes. Thank you. Any other announcements? The parliament elections were held. It was some Aalto representation there as well. Atte Harjanne, for example, and Sara Myrkka have been previously in the Representative Council or in the board, were elected as members of the parliament. Thank you. Any other announcements? No. Closing to item 6, moving to item 7, latest news from the office. Yes, news from the central office. So for community, we've had the tutor training started this week. A lot of work there. The Aalto open air is on Saturday, starting at 4 p.m. at the Alvari Naukio Square. The crowning of Manta is approaching, and other Vappu events as well. They're here soon. Then the kind of out of nowhere, where we have planned a long-term cooperation with the city of Espoo. We'll get back to that once we get the ball rolling. Questions after the presentation, please. The Museum of Student Life got a grant from the Finnish Heritage Agency for developing projects for archive space at the museum. And for real estate, each received for the sale of the Sammas real estate portfolio and for the entire and sub-portfolio, and we'll have the second round among the best bidders. The bidding levels have decreased since a year ago, but they're still above the target price, some of which we have received. Also in tendering property services, and also for cleaning and maintenance services. Project management consultant has been selected for the Otakaare facelift project. And about services, we received 842 responses for the resident survey. The response rate was 38%. The advance booking round for subject negotiation ends, and the first advance booking session will be held on April the 20th. And the advance booking period for other associations begins on May the 3rd. And communication, planning, coordinating, and doing communications of Vappu and the crowning of Manta. We are now done with the parliamentary elections. The web chat project has started. We also done graphic design for upcoming events. And a lot of internal and external meetings. Advocacy. The Eduore people, our education policy specialist Ilkka Niemelä will discuss education policy. I can't remember the exact date. A lot of educational policy issues there. The 28th of April, yes. The National Task Force project started with who goes to gather international students and do advocacy work and lobbying for issues related to them. Today we have the Student Mental Health Day, and to celebrate that we have an alpaca at Alvarin Aukio. You can pet the alpaca. It's not a llama, it's an alpaca. The Sylä upcoming House of a Stage Watch will start. We see some fun activities there as well. Also drafted a statement on student housing, how it must not be excluded from investment grants for special groups as part of our toolkit. Administration and IT. The Central Election Committee has started planning representative elections. The election day is on the 8th of November. And the kickoff event is on the 22nd of May at Rantasauna. There are drinks and snacks available and information about the elections. Membership fee process for international students is automated using TransferMate. And also the automation facility and invoicing is moving forward as well. Association can still pay by invoice, but the invoicing process will be automated. Then for the board, well, a lot of Vappu events coming up. I also took part in AYYE's and Syle's election events. Also had some stakeholder meetings, as you can see here. Here are the past topics on the board's agenda. Invested to EQPEXVUS feeder special fund. Also investing to AYYE invested unrestricted equity fund. And nominations to Junior Sports Management Team, change and improvements to the Central Office, Association of Providing Grants, Otakari Housing Project, especially the implementation plan for Building 3, results from the account tendering and choosing the accountant, accepting the financial statement and finishing tenant guidelines, nominating the scholarship committee, then awarded scholarship from the Kaskelatti and Pelle Fund, made a statement about student housing, the theme of the crowning of Manta, and also opened the application period for Syle's Climate Network and Developed Cooperation Advisory Board, also called Kenkku. Thank you. Any questions? Pilman? Yes, all questions at once. Could a clarification? Well, Espoo City said that they wanted to do more cooperation about community issues with the student union, not just event visibility. For example, when it comes to facilities. And they also wanted to, yes, to have closer contacts with students, which is in accordance with their strategy. Would this be related also to, for example, the rental of the upcoming student center? Well, maybe, but nothing that concrete. I think the biggest plan is about the contract related to the crowding of Manta. Yes, the website project, well, it has started their facelift of their own website. Could you maybe answer a bit better? Thank you. It's in our action plan, and the phase there is the first. Well, we have an agreement with Aalto University that's been made on the Aalto University Drupal. There's some challenges. It's not that easy to use, not that convenient. So we can ask for tenders for developing new websites on this old template. Once we get more detailed specifications from our partner in the website issue, how convenient would it be? So it's moving forward. And once we have more information, we move forward. Have we made tenders only to this one party? No, to others as well. This cooperation with Aalto is that Aalto doesn't do its framework themselves for the website. So more in-depth analysis of what we can do ourselves and what we can do with the partner, with Aalto's partner. We have to look into that. No, with this partner, do you mean Aalto's partner? Do we have any kind of contract with a cooperation partner? No. But the language, Finnish language, the Aalto University has any kind of a financial support for this? We talked about this just yesterday. Yes, we are renewing our language policy. It may be delayed until 2026. And we've been part in different working groups, also in the language policy working group. And the opinions of students have ranged from one end to another. But the consensus would be that we will get a kind of a teaching in Finnish and Swedish if they want to, but then also we have to provide teaching in English, and the opinions among students vary a lot. We also consulted different education parties, such as the ministry. Yes, and then we have the AYYE Oy, the investment. This is just a transfer of money. When we look at the regulations and constitution, I really do not see that this is a significant financial decision, so it would need to be brought to the Representative Council. Thank you. I think it's usually the sum is about 25 to 50,000 euros, and if it's bigger than that, especially if it's related to decisions earlier made by the representative council. And since this is more than the sum that is usually considered not significant, I think this is a significant financial decision. It also answers why the interpreter could not hear what was asked at the ending. Apologies. Well, in this kind of funding instruments that we do within our organization, we usually don't have this collateral or compensation, since it is an internal transfer. Thank you. Yes, so to fill in that you're aware, AYYE is 100% owned by AYYE, so the money has not been transferred anywhere outside of AYYE. We moved internally. Yes, it is just like that, but since this is a company with its own board, and the representative council doesn't really have kind of a ownership steering towards this company, which makes an independent decision. Thank you. I'd like to ask that how many tutors have been selected for AYYE for this year? How many tutor trainings will there be?
So there's around 1,500 tutors this year, and there will be international training and also the basic training, both in English and Finnish, and there will be more than 9 sessions, starting tomorrow.
Any no other request for floor? Let's move on to item 8, management report and financial statements of the Aalto University Student Union. Okay, the representing council. I'll not go through the entire financial statement, but the balance sheet. But there's some general notes about the management report and financial statements. So there will be no big structural changes to the financial statement. It took a lot of time as before. We just made it within the schedule. The figures in the financial statement have been drawn up by Rantalainen as before, under the guidance and tutorage of our financial team. It starts with the management or the operational report, which is the board's description, but in these organizations such as us, it is usually drawn up or delegated to be drawn up by the executive director and the financial director. The financial committee discussed on the 4th of April the financial statement and proposed that they can be verified. The board also discussed them and on the financial statement and the operational report on the 4th and 6th of April. And it was undersigned on the 11th. At the audit report from the auditor and the signature to the financial statement on the 14th of April. And so there's the audit report. Unfortunately, it wasn't in time to be included in the meeting materials or in the agenda. The translation had been done by the AYYE communications team. And we'll get the translations of the audit report during this meeting. And so the representing council's task is to, by the latest in the May meeting, to go through these issues, go through these statements, and also discharge the management from liability if they approve of the documents. Yes, and we extended this deadline that they can be verified in May, because there was already been a bit of trouble with the timetable. So now we have more time. Then here we have the process for the financial statement. We started with our subsidiary companies. Start preparing the process already during the previous year. Then we also do the auditing first. We start that with the subsidiaries as well. And the auditing companies' tasks are mostly in the group side. Then we start the auditing on week 8 of the year. Then the approval by the board, so the AYYE board and the financial committee, steering committee. And then the confirmation done in the General Assembly and in the AYYE Representative Council. We had the General Assemblies already. And now we are discussing it here in this Representative Council meeting to get hopefully get the confirmation or the verification. Here, highlighted in green, we can see the real estate companies, 40 real estate companies, 14 buildings. So those buildings that we own more than 50% of will be consolidated under the group. Also AYYE Palvelu, which we own 100% of, It's also within the group, producing real estate services for the group. Then the management report. So I start with topics that are the most significant. Still the COVID pandemic and Ukraine war as well. But on the more positive side, there was the Tekkare's 150 years. That was a great year. And then the long-term themes about the student center, other construction projects, was the recruitment of the executive director. The management report is also, there are also some legally obliged issues there, financial issues. Some key figures, estimates of risks, what has happened after the financial period, some highlights. There are some significant financial decisions discussed by the Representative Council as well. Then we have made a contract about the shelter with the university and also about Otakaari. Also worked really well at the portfolio sale of the real estate and also approved of the financial policy. Also went through the rental increases and the financial statement, the figures. Here at the top level, they didn't look that good when compared to the previous year. The overall income significantly lower than in 2021, and also overall expenses were higher. So which means that the result was 1.1 million in the red, while last year it was or about 6 million euros in the black. But our debts and solvency rate were pretty much the same as in the previous year. So here we need to look on the top level. It didn't look that good, the numbers, but when we look at it more in depth, when we can look at our actual operations that we can actually influence at the office, different policies, our actual operations, fundraising, our membership fees. So when you compare that to last year, our actual operations were on the positive side, in the black, and also got a lot of money from the membership fee, even though we didn't increase the fee. But we got more members than in the last year. Point of order, is this available somewhere? It should be in the Representative Council folder. The actual document was delivered 5 years ago to the list. Well, can we get this presentation available as well? Yes, I can send it afterwards. Thank you.
Yes. Ja tosiaan sitten, kuten näkyy, niin tuo sijoitus- ja rahoitustoiminnan puolella
And here we can see in our investment activities, there's the big change because last year we had a significant realized investment profits, 5 million euros worth, but last year we had to do some depreciations worth 2.5 million euros, so that's why there's such a big deficit here and such a big difference. What's good here is that the depreciation has now taken a turn for the better. No entries at depreciation. And then let's look a bit more in detail to our actual operations and the result.
Järjestötoiminnan ja opiskelija-asuntotoiminnan lukuihin. Eli järjestötoiminnan puolella
So for associations and student housing, here we can see in associations we are in the negative, in the red, as before. But when we started our operations here, we didn't have that much of a loss as in 2021, much more income, but more expenses as well. But yes, less a deficit than in 2021. And this is great, seeing that our operations are pretty much normal. And managed to cover the expenses with participation fees. That's a good trend here. For student housing, we had a exceptionally good surplus here, even though the expenses increased. And the interest and investment expenses are on the rise. But yes, unfortunately, we will see the increases realized more this year. And previously, when the interest fees have been low, we have made some paid off some installments, so that we don't have to pay interest on that much debt. For support functions, a bit more deficit than in 2021. Then we should look at the balance sheet for the group. No major changes here. A bit smaller than in the previous year. Also because of the depreciation of value in investments. And new construction projects haven't yet been initiated. Then about our auditing process and the auditing report. The audit is divided in the audit before and after the financial period. Now they go through the expense invoices, membership income, etc. It's a massive audit. And for verification of various entries. A manual things here as well, a lot of events. Our auditor submitted the audit report. And the auditor reports to the financial board. Some notes reported to the board. So this is a summary. Thank you. Opening discussion. Vilma. Thank you. You mentioned AYYE-palvelut Oy. that they haven't yet had their General Assembly, or have they? Yes, they have, and they have approved them. The board has gone through them, so we're just looking for the approval. I just think that if they haven't approved them, how can we approve if the financial board hasn't? But yes. Thank you for the presentation. Those are good if a person from the board would be more familiar with these issues if someone from the financial board, for example, falls ill. Apparently, no other request for the floor. So, the Reps and Council decided to enter into the minutes the AYYE management report and financial statements for 2020, and the Reps and Council decided to leave the 2020 deficit to the surplus and deficit account. Moving to item 9, audit report 2022. Did we decide to confirm it? Yes, we decided to confirm them. Moving to item 9, audit report for 2022. Yes, I already talked about how we reached this audit report, and it's a clean report, nothing to, no complaints made, nothing to note or to report on, really. Yes, a few pages back. So yes, if we notice that there is some kind of error, we must report of this, but there is nothing to report. So there are no errors in the management report or anything to report. So a clean report undersigned by Kirsi Aromäki, the auditor. Unfortunately, I received this documented translation during this meeting. Yes. Any requests for floor on this item? No. So let's make the decision. Reps and Council acknowledge the audit report of 2022. How many members do we have here in the room now? 24. Missing one. We have one outside, who will come in a couple of minutes. Well, then let's move to item 11. Keep item 10 for now. Item 11, audit tendering and the selection of the auditing firm. Well, actually, let's move to item 3, recording the lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. Now we can state that we have quorum, since now we have 25 members here. And can we now just go with the decisions we made before, or do we have to process them again? No. We will now confirm the decisions we made before, since now we have quorum. And now let's move to item 10, granting freedom from liability to board members and other responsible parties of 2022. And the board from last year is obstructed from attending this item. Yes, please, those obstructed from attending this item, please leave the room. So, Kuraniemi, Malkamäki. The way I see it, the quorum does not diminish even if the people who are obstructed leave the room, since they exist. Yes, we confirmed this already before the meeting, that it is so. So, for this item, according to section 12, paragraph 14 of our constitution, the Representative Council decides upon confirming the student union's financial statements and agrees grants freedom from liability to the board and other responsible parties. Yes, actually one more person who needs to leave. Yes. So there is responsibility or duty of the Representative Council, and the motion here is that the Representative Council decided to grant freedom from liability to the board members and other responsible parties of 2022. So, I think we can decide to grant freedom from liability if no one disagrees. There are no other comments. Yes, Representative Council decided to grant freedom from liability to the board members and others responsible for 2022, and now we can ask for the people to come back in. Yes, you have been granted liability or discharged from liability. Point item 11, audit tendering and the selection of the auditing firm. I do multitask so much that bear with me, please, and get the presentation up. Yes, so the audit tendering. Yes, we started this planning on the 10th of January, and the working group included Monika Kivimäki, Jani Koskinen, and Jari Saartokoski. Material was approved on the 30th of January, and the bid for tenders was sent to 6 different auditing companies, and the deadline for tenders was the 28th of February. And we sent them to these auditing companies. PwC tender, there was some technical difficulties in submitting it, and so we granted some more time for that. And then by the 6th of March, we got the tender from 5 companies. Then when comparing the tenders, the criteria were price and the competence of the community and team and experience on fields relevant for AYYE. And we emphasized a lot on the price because it was difficult to find a variation within other criteria. And for these 3 parties, the price is pretty much the same level as with each other, which is a bit lower than the current level. And we called for interviews, the BDO, KPMG, and Tuokko, and announced to AYYE and PwC why we did not call them for interviews. Then we had the interviews at the office on the 14th of March. And we reached a unanimous decision to decide on KPMG, which has been our auditor before as well. In 2010, 2011, and since 2017. And the grounds here were the price, references team, and the ARA expertise in the team as well. And then we also went through this in the finance board and the board on the 4th of April. And the next tendering is scheduled to be held on 2027. So we propose that the KPMG will continue as our auditing company. Our Kirsi Aromäki will continue as the head auditor. Aromäki has been the head auditor since 2020. Opening discussion. Thank you for the presentation. When you talked about the companies, I believe that all of them are multinational mega corporations. Is this the case that there are no really actually Finnish auditing companies that we could actually support a local company? Because I think KPMG, it says on the Wikipedia article there is a lot of text there under the headline controversies. So I think many of us would want to support more ethical parties here than these multinational actors. Yes, we mentioned this, and that's why we also had Tuokko here as well among the candidates, which is a Finnish family company. And I think the biggest criteria was the price. Can we talk about the actual figures? But I would like to hear what would be the price of a Finnish company, how much this Finnish company, what their tender would have been. So it is an ideological choice that AYYE could sometime make, even if it's a bit more expensive. the parties that we interviewed, they all had the same price really. Their offer. Started with an open mind, the interviews, that any of these three could be selected. And also started we had this whole process with an open mind, that even it's a fact that switching an auditing firm is a lot of work. We were ready for it. And from the interviews, we saw that the smaller organization didn't have that wide field of expertise. So maybe we could have better experience, better expertise from them than from a bigger organization. And yes, so this is this basis for special expertise and preference. We cannot really make a difference between these two parties. But yes, Tuokko was part of this process for the second time now, and was on the interviews the last time. So it would be, of course, we would want to support smaller Finnish actors as well. But there, when looking at all the criteria, just better the KPMG, when looking at the points. Yes, and here the invitation to the interviews was sent only to these certain parties. Was there said that they could lower the offer or something like that? Or what were these told, these parties who did not make it to the interviews? What were they told? Well, we have never having a more kind of open negotiation on the offer when it's about public procurement. Oh, yes, we don't have to have this open tender because this does not fall under the public procurement. Yes, we also asked for the offer from Tuokko, but are there other, if there probably are other Finnish auditing companies as well, so in the future could we send these tender calls to other Finnish auditing companies in the future as well, not just to Tuokko? Yes, I believe we can, but I have to say that it's been quite a lengthy process, and since we have a kind of a challenging organization for an auditing company, so because our association activities and the ARA requirements complicate matters so much that we probably wouldn't get enough, there isn't enough expertise in other Finnish companies. Tuokko is the only one who has enough expertise in this. Those are references from the ARA expertise as well. But yes, if there are other noteworthy actors, we will of course include them in the process in the future. Closing discussion. There are no other proposals here. So we can decide to select KPMG as AYYE's auditing firm. Moving to item 12, approval of resident selection appendix. This will be presented by Heikkinen and Is this presentation also available somewhere? The previous one? Is it available? That has not been sent to you. The PowerPoint, or was it?
These all can be found in the meeting recordings. Okay. Approving the tenant appendix. We had a discussion in the meeting. Asked for comments or change proposals for change by the 10th of April. We asked both the representative council, Takiva, and the group chairs, and we got answers. No big proposals for change were made. The upcoming comments are being taken into account, and they will be taken into account in the upcoming developments. They're not implementable currently. So if we will not approve this now, this will return this to preparation. Not really sure who would work the appendix from here on out. Might be that the system changes might not be made by the end of 2023. The transfer time, including the tenant choices, have been defined until the end of 2023. Also, the legislation changes on the 1st of September. We'll have to follow the law in tenant selections. Even more direct letter. We also have judiciary responsibility here. And without the support of this system, the increased workload to staff will be enormous, and a lot of more manual work needs to be done. Let's move to approve the resident selection appendix. If you have any comments, you can state them now. So let's have the open discussion from here on out. Thank you, Chairperson. The previous meeting we had this scores, so and income limits. Also the scorings for work and employment effect. There are things that affect in the background. We are not deciding on that issue, we are deciding on the appendix. And the appendix does not actually affect these limits, so it's so this is not actually something that pertains to the appendix itself. And it's kind of something that's on the background. That's why we haven't brought this here up for perusal. The numbers themselves is not something that we actually decide here. taking into account that this caused lots of discussion, and this is one of the pertaining things to tenants, that this has been presented. This is a decision that's being made, so something to do with the preliminary scorings. Apologies for the interpretation quality. The sound is very bad. Lots of static. I can say here that we do not have any material here where we can show anything of that nature, so we are talking about the appendix, so you might want to talk to the board. Thank you. I think that this is a weird situation because this has to pertain with is that these kind of stipulations and limits exist. And that this appendix that I requested and I received it, so it's interesting to see as a reference to the Representative Council that Takiva has proposed that these kind of income limits should be there. But there's some of these scorings, a long list of specific numbers pertaining to income limits and scorings. So 15,000 until 15,000, no effect on scorings, which is a good change. It was 8,000 before. The next limit is that 22,000 the interpreter guesses because the speaker is speaking very loudly, very incoherently, very fast. So lots of numbers are very hard to repeat. And like 66,000, 70,000 minus X points, minus 100 being the highest score. In Takiva we were told, and if these are being told, who's doing these decisions, taking into account that this is something that the RepCo can decide. We have to take into account the ARA regulations. We want working system. We aim to update this and develop this. There are these changes that we think, then we can also in board meetings affect them, and by request of the tenants we can make stipulations by the board or changes depending on what's being requested. So this special limits that we are using. In the old system, the problem was that there were direct amounts of euros which was not correlate with inflation, for example. Thank you. If no other requests for the floor are being made, let's move to the side. The Representative Council decided to approve the resident selection appendix to the housing regulations in accordance with Appendix 12. Moving on to item 13, appointment of members to the scholarship distribution committees. Hello. About the same thing happened a year ago. So let's do a little recap. The process has a small change. The basic idea is that we hand out these scholarships. We have three. We have the exchange scholarship, the community scholarship, and the study scholarship. And in the fall, we will have the exchange-ship and the two others in the spring. And in the fall, we usually have it about December. The Y and O numbers, so this scoring relations, what's being decided. So it includes like how long have you studied, and your grade point average and study credits, and these are being calculated by an appendix drafted by the board. So exchange scholarship is 50-50, community is 40-60, and study scholarship is 100-0. Actually, are they the wrong way around? Feels very weird. Let's move onwards. So what's the goal? We should divvy out this, appoint the members of the scholarship distribution committees. So specialist, a board member, 2 RepCo members, and what the position entails is 3 meetings throughout the year, depending on how fast this can be done. And in the fall, when we have this small, we have 1 or 2 in the spring and maybe 1 in the fall. And so these scholarship applicants and what kind of evaluation pertains. What large changes is being made or have been made to the scholarships? Last year we had a project. We did some work with the board regarding this. System. So the earlier system was quite unclear, both for the applicants and the committee. So the problems also included uniformity was a bit hard to actually determine categorically how the scores are handled. And also if you've looked at the older system for the scholarship, you know it was prone to misuse. So it was possible to link volunteer positions. Like if you had
Joo, sä
10
pystyt käytännössä
tasks,
rikkomaan sen systeemin, saat ihan älyttömästi
you could use
pisteitä.
that
Et
to
se
break the
siihen
system,
välttämättä henkilöt,
get a lot of
jotka
points.
on stipendin
So
ansainnut, ei välttämättä
individuals
saaneet.
who
Jos
were
esimerkiksi 2 vuoden
considered under
tosi
the
aggressiivisella
scholarship
toimikunta-
system
tai toimihenkilöpesti
by using
tilillä
2
saamaan,
years and
niin
do
siihen
a
haluttiin
lot of
myös
aggressive
ohjaus.
committee work, they could get that scholarship very easily. So
Tosiaan
that's been corrected.
muita muutoksia, ja tosiaan siis vielä tähän
So,
aikaisempaan pistysmalliin
so
liittyen,
this
niin
changes to
tää
the
tosiaan siis
points
myös
to the
hyötyy hallituksen kokouksessa läpi.
systems is that
Eli tää uusi pistemalli
the new
hyväksyttiin
point
ja
system was
kohta vielä
approved.
läpi, eli
I
mitä
will
ne
go through it
muutokset ovat.
very
Eli
shortly.
myös muutoksia on se, että tosiaan aikaisemmin
Also changes to the applications
lomakejärjestelmästä
is
tullaan
that from the form
siirtymään
system we will be
Microsoftin
moving to Microsoft 365 forms, a lot easier to operate. Also in the earlier model we had 55 different categories, so from all kind of systems, magazines, living, tie-in groups and stakeholder groups, all kinds of different groups. So categorically we have moved to 10 plus 1 categories. So 10 plus 1 meaning that the plus 1 is the miscellaneous category. So this is kind of the final resort. So how does this application change in the new model? Well, we have these 10 categories. So we have the REPCO, which is the Representative Council. We have AYYs, activities, stuff like Tokyo, TAFA, these kind of like clones to REPCO. Special status associations. So these in kind of these broad categories. People fill out this form, tell what kind of tasks they're in, give a scope, describe the nature of the position, estimate the workload, and explain why they have to give themselves certain scores. Max 3 most significant positions per year, no points if in employment relationship. And also this gives more kind of a leeway to the committee on what kind of things award scores. In addition, we did a stipulation regarding to prevent the old misuse. You can only place max 3 most significant positions per each year. So place your 3 biggest things based on which we will gain a kind of a smart average. So if you're actually working and doing these things, you can still have it affect. Another thing is that no points also in if you're employed by AYY, like if you're, this is only people who are actually employed, not in something like the board members who only receive some monetary compensation, but if you're in an actual paid relationship as a working employee. Also, what was in the previous model, no points for the activities of invite-only clubs. This has already been implemented or implementation for several years.
Mitkä tässä nyt on sitten seuraavat askeleet on se, että tosiaan meidän pitää nyt täältä sitten saada kaksi nohevaa.
So what happens next is that
jakotoimikuntaprosessia nyt tässä keväällä, eli aika piakoin todennäköisesti vapun jälkeen.
So quite next steps, meaning that we form the allocation committee, 2 members of the REPCO and the representative of the board, approve the scoring document, maybe get this rolling around the start of the summer.
Sen jälkeen sitten tosiaan mutta yhteistyöspohja myös se on jo hyväksytty, niin se voi myös poistaa.
Actually, the second item, which is approving the community scoring document, has actually been done. Then the board will actually decide on the opening of the application round next week, if we have a meeting. Then we will do the tweakings to this application template, so it will be clear. Then we'll have the opening of the applications process, then pre-process of the data and meetings with the allocation committee, and finalized, we will do the proposition to the board, approval, announcements, and the payments of the scholarships.
No nyt voittaa kysymyksiä.
Now I may take questions.
Työjärjestykseen. Aiemmista aiheista poiketen
So
meillä on tekniikka nyt siten, että
the technique
videolle menee
is that
mikrofoni.
the video sound is going to the camera microphone. So Ilman, please don't use a hand microphone, but rather maybe talk towards the camera so we can actually get that to the interpreters as well. Thank you. I will turn my back on you if it's okay. Okay, this is not really working. So, thank you, Chairperson. The three most significant jobs, how does this compare to, for example, representative council activities? Previously, I've been in this committee for the scholarships, and I feel that it's a bit undervalued, but it might have compensated in that you might get scores for being in this group, but now you're only putting one thing pertaining to the representative council. So how is the scoring then handled?
Otan nyt vaikka skaala-esimerkki, en muista tarkkoja. Tosiaan pistepäin.
Let's take Scala as an example.
Tosiaan se piste, joku alkupiste.
There's the start point or the ending score.
Otan vaikka jos on
But let's take like you are from 30 to 50. You get maybe from 30 for being in the REPCO. But on the scope, the application groundings, if you participated in meetings or if you participated in work groups, if you have acted as a chairperson, you may give grounds in the open section that why this task is more demanding, like the amount of work hours put in or descriptive arguments on why you should get more scores. So the open comments is the biggest influence here for that. So you mentioned 30 to 50 points, but could it be possible to get over that if you have for example, a real AYYE person who doesn't go to employed work, they want just to do this and they just make all of their free time for AYYE. So is it possible to get even more scores, or is there kind of an internal stipulation for the maximum? I would say that we want to stay within the frameworks. If you have a large enough exception, of course the committee will decide in the ultimate situation. So can you in REPCO tasks, can you do the maximum in 1 year? If you're there for every year, you'll get scores for every year. If you say like 3 years of EDARI work in the REPCO, that gets more scores. And then for every year you say that I took part in this and this meeting and did this and this. So we will of course evaluate. Can I continue? Please wait for the rebuttal. We did with the board, the scoring model, the REPCO said 5 to 35 points for the REPCO. So if you maybe you could get less points for just being in the meeting than if you're in several committees or a vice chair, you get more points. Because earlier it was really narrowed down to a certain number that you could actually get. How active were you?
Yksi vielä kanssa itse asiassa, mikä ei tossa nyt suoraan tullut, mutta
And,
esimerkiksi jos kuuluu koko toimikuntaan, mikä on
if you are in a
miten se järkevästi
committee,
pystyy määrittämään sen,
how can you define sensibly that does a task include this and this work if you're a study representative or an correspondent, it has these certain responsibilities.
Tai siis oot
But if you're in a committee or a in a Fuksikippari task, for example,
vaan ne lyödään saman pestikategorian alle. Ja
so they're not carried out as the same tasks, they're in different
sä et erikseen merkkaa
categories, so you're not actually
ja sit toisena
just
pestinä
marking
kohtaa sä lyöt ne käytännössä samaan
two tasks, but you put one task, and then depending on your own activities, the scope can increase your points. Speak to the camera.
Ei ole muu varaus. Puhu sä siihen käsimikkiin, ei se varmaan sieltä sivulta voi.
You can speak to the hand microphone.
Puheenvuoroa ja sitten tulee muita ohjeita.
Kainalainen Kyltärengas aloittosäännöstä toiminnassa 2020.
I was in the committee in 2020, so it's nice that these problems have been addressed, that I remembered as flashbacks that we had these problems, that in the scorings maybe one question would stand, which is that have you taken into account, or in this work have you taken into account people who are starting as master's degree students in Aalto, because naturally they have less time to gather these scores in relation to the length of studies. Has this been even discussed at all? Of course, they're not deciding on the scorings, but it would be nice to know.
Yes, hyvä kysymys. Tosiaan,
Excellent question. Of course, this model does not comment for this, so this doesn't actually affect this change to the things that have happened earlier in one way or direction or another. What I'd see is that it's kind of the raw fact for the relations for scores is that exchange scholarship. If you are a master's degree student who are doing this first thing, you have a really good grade point average. You can theoretically gain it. But if you have been in the community for a long time, several years, and has an okay grade point average, they will probably gain the scholarship. So we will to also reward the active individuals with a long track record of working for AYYE. So we want to support active individuals. It might be hard because some people might have started earlier. If you only start this and a master's degree, it might be harder to gain a scholarship, but it's certainly not impossible. But community scholarship might be definitely harder because it's only from community points. So if you've been there longer, then you will most likely gain it. And the study scholarship, we have the 60% comes from studies. In this old model, in the new model, people who have done good track record, so it's not only for individuals with a long-standing community experience, but this is kind of the balancing of the relationships is another thing we have done. To continue on amounts, if you say you have to only place 3 per year, I know individuals who are in several associations, they do 4 or 5. So it feels like they're being punished in this sense. It might end up in a situation where people who are in the board and other these kind of tasks versus the people who are not in guild boards. So this kind of a case of discrimination. So I feel that this maximum of 3 should be increased to 4 or 5. Then it feels like, of course, I know several individuals, not personally, but several other individuals who are in several associations who work actively. And I feel that for this, the 3 feels too little. I feel that we should increase this from 3 to 5 or 4. Any comment?
tosiaan se 3 nyt ehkä otettiin sellaisesta niin kuin
So maybe we took this 3 from
hattuvakiosta
a
tai
kind of a Harrison Stetson
arviosta, että itsehän on
evaluation.
syyllistynyt tähän, että olen tehnyt vaikka 8-9 pestiä samaan aikaan
I
vuodessa.
might have done personally maybe 8 or 9 tasks every year.
Huomasin siinä, että kyllä se niinku mun mielestä
But,
on niinku ihan vaan niinku ehkä vapaaehtoiskentän terveydenkin puolesta.
It is for the health of the volunteer field, it's like that for scholarship, like people should not do 1,000 tasks just for the scholarship.
Halu tehdä asioita. Ja
If
ehkä se
people
3
want
on
to do
myös
things,
sillain
maybe
niinku
3
realistinen määrä
in
siinä
this sense is a
mielessä,
realistic amount
et sä
that
kauhean montaa testiä pysty
you
tekemään
can't
oikeesti myös
do
ehkä
very many tasks
ja sillain
100%
niinku 3 enemmän. Se on tavallaan
more than
otettu sillä
3. So it's kind of this kind of an evaluated
3 tärkeintä.
average,
Ja se on
the 3
myös
most important
tässä
ones.
pisteskaala esimerkiksi, jota vaikka toimihenkilöhomma saattaa mennä niin kuin jostain
For example, like a
30, ja sit vaikka hallitus
the scale might be from 5 to 30.
40 tai 25 35, niin
And,
vaikka toimihenkilöhommassa voit silti saada ihan samanvertaista
You might get the same amount of points if you are in just appointed tasks in comparison to guild board tasks. We are actually, I like to note that we are not talking about the categories, we are talking about the members of the committees. So this is actually past the point. At this stage, the board is proposing to choose 2 members. 2 members of the RepCo and a representative of the board. So we will take names at this point. If you allow for a short clarification, we have 3 members of the representative council, so we can get more evaluative power to do these evaluations. The idea is that it would be handy that these same members would be the same members in all committees. They could all do these all 3 in the same session. Then, Ilman. Hautomäki, Filman. Hautomäki, I am available for all 3 committees. Filman Voltti, I'm available for all 3 committees. We're still searching for an interested individual. Matias Saikku is available. If nobody else is, he will be. He has been there for a few years prior and be happy to do it again. Other requests for the floor or proposals? None made. So let's decide according to the agenda. So the mentioned 3 will be appointed to all 3 committees. Decided. Moving on to item 14, establishment of the digital and IT working group, Filman. In the board, we have a new template, we have received it. We will be proposing it to the Representatives Council, where the work group will not be set up. So we will have the board's point. Point of order. The board cannot make a template for this. This is a Representative Council members proposal. So the Representative Council can make a decision, not the board. Technical break, we'll check this.
So yes, here we can see an exception to the rules. So in point 14, states that if the board has given its own proposal, it will be the proposal or the motion in the meeting. This is how I interpret the regulations. So yes, I'll ask the board to come please present this. And then Filman. Yes, we discussed this with the board last Thursday. And the board's point of view was that this proposal is very similar to the proposal in the previous meeting, which the European Council already decided to reject. So the only thing different here is to change the committee to working group. The European Council has voted and stated through that there is not a need for this kind of a committee or a working group, and that is why the board agreed with the results of the vote. And the board thinks that in this original proposal by Filman, we don't have the resources, the board or office, to run this kind of a working group or committee, and we do not see the benefits to be significant enough to recommend establishing such a committee or working group. But primarily our decision is based on the voting result by the Representative Council in the previous meeting. Thank you. And Filman? So, as we talked in the previous meeting, it was then a committee that people opposed to, not a working group. And a quote from the meeting was that, well, people said that the working group would be okay, but the committee not.
Silloin kun tätä käsiteltiin, niin siellä Aallon kokoomuksen edustaja ihan suoraan sanoi tämän.
And a representative from Aalto Kokoomus actually said this, that the working group would be okay, even if a committee isn't. Yes, I think you are referring to me, and I do not remember saying this. Olli? I would be interested to hear the logic behind this. We are individuals, we would be interested in going through these issues, but why do you want to make it more difficult than it is? It has to be discussing these issues. Does the board want to comment? Well, we are not opposed to having this kind of a body, but here in this motion it says that it can require training for presenting issues from AYYE's employees, volunteers, or external experts, and these are kind of requirements that we see are more detrimental than beneficial to us. Filman? That's an interesting change of topic, because the action plan talks about the involving Representative Council, hearing their opinions, and since the board hasn't even looked into the community's opinion on this decision, it seems that the board tries to take away the possibility from the Representative Council to get support for these issues. I think this is pretty outrageous. And when I say that these would take away time and resources from you and be detrimental to your activities, sounds that you really don't trust in us. Because there are people interested who want to work for the community and make sure that the community gets the services they deserve. It's a very peculiar course of action from the board. If you want to voice your distrust to the board, you can. And I also want to say that we have not prohibited you from establishing this working group. We just brought a motion to the table with our perspectives and opinions. Of course, you are free to make counter proposals and to have a vote as well. This is a tool for the board to bring our opinions to the meeting. That's what our view is. We are not prohibiting you from doing this. Yes, point of order. So, the Representative Council makes its decisions based on the agenda, and the agenda says the motion is that the Representative Council decided to appoint this working group. And the board has not submitted a counter proposal in time before the agenda. So that's why the motion here is that we will establish the working group. The way we see it, the way I see it, this has been mentioned in the agenda, this proposal, but in the agenda for the meeting as the proposal from the board. Now try to interpret the regulations, because this was not brought up as an agenda for the meeting. That the motion in the agenda prevails over the board's proposal. So that we will keep the motion that is in the agenda of the meeting. Yes, I think we can interpret it as such. A bit challenging being the vice chair of the Representative Council to have to interpret this, and I couldn't prepare for this. So last request for now, then the proposal for change, and then a vote after that if it's necessary. As a business student, I talk about supply and demand, but yes, if we think that once associations know that with the decision of the Representative Council that AYYE will cut on digital services with the mandate of the Representative Council, very difficult situation for associations, which we discussed before, I think in the autumn. So I think I agree with Pollari that if we have people here who are willing and want to do something to solve this problem in the community.
Mun mielestä olisi sääli
I think it would be a shame
tapaamatta ja mä en ollut itse
to
siinä edellisessä
stop them from
kokouksessa,
doing that. I wasn't in the previous meeting myself,
valiokuntana, jos jotain muu keskustelu.
where there was this discussion between a committee and a working group.
Mä haluaisin, että olisi mahdollisuus
But I would like to see this possibility, to give the possibility to members of the community to solve a problem within the community, which is also self-inflicted to a certain degree. Yes, Linnikka from Kylterirengas.
I would like to add that I think if there is people that are motivated and willing to help, I would argue that it's not going to burden the board and create more work for you, but maybe even less work in the future to help with the transition, passing on information to associations, and just giving a general hand with the activities that are coming up. So if you could maybe explain like why it would be more work for you when you have more hands to help, then that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Arstila vihreämpi Aalto. Mä esittäisin tässä juuri
Arstila
tätä,
Greener
mitä
Aalto, I would propose
puheenjohtaja
what
tässä
the
aiemmin, hallituksen
chairperson
puheenjohtaja sanoi, että
has said,
eihän
that
se, että me tästä nyt tehtäisiin
it's not
kielteinen
that
päätös,
we would
niin
do
ketään estä mitään
a
tekemästä
negative
opiskelijoiden.
decision.
Se
It
on
doesn't
tunnettu siitä, että täällä niin kyllä
prevent anybody
osaajat
from doing
löytää
anything.
toisensa ja
The
tekijät
student
löytää
communities
toisensa
know
ja
that
kyllä niin
people
kuin,
who
jos
do and
on
know how to do will
asioita
find each other.
kiinnostus
If there
edistää,
are
niin siihen
interested
on
parties to develop
mahdollisuuksia,
things,
mutta
there are opportunities.
aiemmassa
But
puheenvuorossa kysyttiin, että
in the
miten
previous
muka
speaker was asking that
lisäkädet tuo
why would
lisää
extra
töitä.
hands
No juurikin
mean
sen takia,
more
että siinä on
work?
lisää
Of
käsiä,
course,
mitä
it means that there are
ohjeistaa
more
ja
hands to give
resurssoida ja
instructions to
auttaa
resource, to
kysyttäessä.
help,
Ja
to
noi
train.
ton esityksen niin ehkä voisi vaatimukseksi sanoa,
And
juuri
a
mitä hallituksen
requirement of the
puheenjohtaja tässä aiemmin toi
proposal
esiin näistä
was said,
koulutus-
as the
ja
chairperson said, that this training and
niin koulutusvaatimuksista ja
training requirements
oikeudesta saada apua
and the right to
toimistolta ja
receive help
hallitukselta, niin
from the
sehän
office
ihan
and the
suoraan
board, this is a direct kind of a
suoraan oikeuttaisi sitten
would
siihen,
entail
vaikka
to this, even
kuinka
though
paljon luotettaisiin, ettei hirveää
people would
työmäärää siltä
actually
tulevalta toimikunnalta tulisi, niin se on kuitenkin
trust that there
mahdollisuus.
would not be a lot of
Näin
tasks or lots of work
toimineena, niin ainakin
caused
mun
by this
käsitys on,
committee,
että
but
ihan hirveästi
it's still an
ylimääräistä
opportunity.
tekijää
And as an
ja
Edari person, I know that
rahaa ei kyllä toimistolta löydy.
the office doesn't have any kind of extra resources lying around for this and that. They're kind of stretched thin.
Polariskisma ehkä yksi metataso.
Maybe one meta level upwards.
Tätä keskustelua käy monessakin kokouksessa ja muutenkin.
We've had this
Ehkä tää taustalla
discussion in the meeting. Maybe the background problem is that the REPCO committee on how do they work, how are they being utilized, what can they do, and what are the options for a representative council member to affect. They need to be clarified and maybe need to be rethought that how the task of a representative council member can be resourced better. Kind of a segue to the topic that's being discussed. Is that something for the board or the REPCO itself, or the next year's REPCO, that better tools for them next year? If no other requests for the floor are being made or proposals for change are being made, Aaltomäki Aalto Coalition. What was the interpretation? What is the template here? I kind of maybe missed it. Do we have more than one proposal? The interpretation currently is that
todettiin, että
the agenda we agreed that
esitystä ei muutettu
the proposal was not being changed.
tilannetta siten,
So I interpret so that
oikeusneuvoston esityslistassa oleva
the
esitys perustaa
item on the agenda
työryhmä ja asettaa sille nämä
to set an IT work group and give it these rights
lausuu teemaan liittyvistä asioista, niin
to give statements on the theme. Setting up the work group is the template, and we have the template proposals. If no other proposals are being, so we'll have a direction giving vote and then decide. So if at this stage you may want to make a proposal, you may do so, and an interpretation on whether or not we will be voting it against the template. We could make a proposal for change, which is quite the same as Pielman's original point, but include that the training and resource requirements would be given with within the stipulations of the resources that the head office has to offer. I don't know where would I make this proposal and where. If you can maybe place it in writing, maybe for the second. So Greener Aalto would be bringing a proposal for change akin to this one. If the biggest problem is in the template, in the interpreted template, the requirements to resources and aid, if that is the problem here by the board and the main central office, is that the decision would be that we would change it so that the work group would have the option to affect decision making but not request any resources. So based on what kind of proposal that Malkamäki will have, we'll second it or write our own version. Question is that has the board made this proposal for change? The board in its morning school has decided to present, this was not bought as a technicality, but since we are handling it, we'll be looking at the proposal for change now. Or is there only the template here? The essential question here is that, yes, that's what's being decided. Sorry, this is our blunder. So Greener Aalto and Aalto Coalition, if you're making any proposals, I hope that you will make the word form so that we are not limiting the requests for information. The work group does not need training, it doesn't need staff or resources in that sense, but we need information from individuals that how our IT services are being used, how many users do we have, etc. So this is what we need. So if you are proposing something that kind of narrows this down, as this would actually pass this as is, but please do not hinder requests for information, because without the right to request information, making this work is very, very hard. Thank you, Chairperson. And the board's template requests for users. That is one of the things which is something that causes lots of work. and
vähän ja sen takia näitä
takes a lot of our IT
muutoksia
resources,
Eli
which we
se,
already
mikä
have
tästä
stretched thin.
toimiston tämän työryhmän
So this
perustamista
is
ensisijaisesti
why when
vastustaa on se, että
we are
me nähdään, että
kind of
nämä
against
resurssit,
setting
mitä
up a
tämän
work group
työryhmän
of this
pyörittämiseen
kind,
käytetään, on pois
that
siitä
what
IT-työn
the
tekemisestä, että
tasks
nimenomaan
or the
pitäisi
time spent
toivottaa,
on
että
this work group
tehtäisiin
is away
sitten
from
niin kuin
the IT
muun muassa
tasks
yhdistyksillä ja
we need to do
yhdistystoiminnan kehittämiseen.
and
Ja
development of
se on
association
se
activities, for
niin kuin
example.
peruste siihen, että minkä
So
takia
that would be the grounds
niin kuin myös sen lisäksi, että
why,
edustajakomitean päätetään
in addition, the
varmasti
REPCO will be
äänestää tämän
deciding
vastaavan
to
asian
vote
ohi,
on
niin miksi hallitus
this item
sitten
to
taas
one
ei
direction or
edusta
next, why the
uskaltanut
board
olla tämän
has
verran hallitusta
decided
ollen
to
paikalla kyseisessä kokouksessa, missä
decide this
asiaa
kind of
käsiteltiin.
issue.
Henkilökohtaisesti tuntuu, että
Personally,
meidän tyypit, jotka tätä työstää,
knowing the
edustaa
individuals
luottaa siihen,
who
että
work
nämä
this,
asiat, esimerkiksi se, että miten
I
niitä
can rely that
IT-palveluita korvataan muilla
how
palveluilla
will
niin,
our
että
IT services
yhdistyksille ei jää
be
niistä ja AY-resurssit
replaced
annettu
by
vaan, niin
others,
niitä
so
keskustellaan,
without
että voidaan
a
kyllä
risk to
tapauksessa yhteisölle siinä vaiheessa, kun
hurting
aloitetaan
AYY
keskustella
members.
rahaa. Ja niin kuin meillä on joku esitys siitä, että
But
mitkä
when we
olisi
have a
korvaavat
proposal
ratkaisut.
for
Että ei tässä
what
nyt ole
would be
ajatuksena,
these
niin kuin olen monta kertaa tässäkin todessa sanonut, että ajatus ei
other
ole se, että
solutions,
joku black boxista ajetaan alas kaikki ja ei tule mitään korvaavaa tilalle.
so
Ja niin meidän oletus tai niin
our
meidän
assumption,
näkemys ehkä tässä asiassa
our
on se,
view
että
here is that
tällaisen työryhmän lisääminen tähän
adding
olisi
a
pois
work
siitä
group to this
valmistelusta,
would
jota me tehdään
remove
sen eteen, että
resources from the
saadaan
preparatory work we are
toteutettua nämä
already
mahdollisimman hyvin, koska
undertaking.
jokainen kokous, jokainen selvitys,
Because every
jokainen
meeting, every request for information, every request, every
dataa on aika
specific
työlästä
data
ja on
request
pois siitä
causes
työstä, mitä tehtäisiin niiden
work
ongelmien ratkaisemiseksi.
and is away from time spent actually solving problems. A last request for Fielman.
Yes, kiitos puheenjohtaja. Viima Voltti. Nyt oli kyllä niin ristiriitainen kommentti toiminnanjohtajalta, että niin kuin
So
oikeasti
I have to say that this is actually a very I'm feeling a bit angry about that comment. These issues are something that you have promised to find out and bring to the REPCO when we have actually discussed this last fall. We'll talk about number of users. Well, let's put more money for users that they can buy these services. You can't make or you can't make a proposal like this if you don't know how these are used and by whom and how many individuals are using these. The items that I brought is that something that you need to find this out regardless. It can't be extra work for the board or the main office. So now we are, I say it's blatantly wrong to accuse that these would cause more tasks because these are your tasks, which we've already told you before that you need to take into account. I feel ashamed that we have this kind of system. Individuals defending the template without they actually even look at their own situation critically. So, and then we will move on to proposal for change. Can I comment on that enough that the data that we need, we will get it regardless. I would like to trust the office even without the work group. I depict that we have two proposals. Either set it up or don't set it up. We will distribute resources or not.
Missä mediassa pitää laittaa kirjallisena?
In what media do I have to write
Hallituksen puheenjohtajan telegramista.
written part is in the board chairperson's telegram. So we'll bring these two items up for vote if we. So So for all other items except number 2, this is identical. Is it?
Sitten poimimme sen kohdan. Liiketoimet nyt sille eläryhmässä tekemistä. Ja työjärjestykseen, oliko tälle Malcolm-äänestykselle?
So was there a seconding to Malkamäki's proposal?
Yes.
In the name, yes. What item? 14. 14 on the agenda.
Yes, nyt tuolla näkyy tämä muutosesitys, niin jos
So when making a proposal,
ja otetaan tämä. Nyt mä vielä tarkastan
the item which is being
viimeistä kertaa
proposed for change.
Työjärjestyksen, niin pieni pahoittelu kokousteknisestä, niin
So apologies for the.
kokoustekninen tauko, niin
Let's take a 2-minute break.
AYYE-säännöt ja edustajiston
Look at the
varmasti oikein. Yes.
working order of the representative council so that look at the regulations, 2-minute break.
Otetaan ihan koitetaan 8 minuutin kokoustauko.
Let's take an 8-minute break. Continue at quarter 2. Let's continue.
Yes. Teimme tulkintaa ja tosiaan niin
The interpretation. There's a lot of noise because people are sitting down. So we'll be voting the proposals against each other and then the winner against Fielmans, or the template, which is the board's template. So blue is board's proposition, let's not found this. Red is Malkamäki's proposal, white is empty. Both counters? It's a clear red. The proposal for Malkamäki's wins. Fielmans. So blue is Fielmans, red is Malkamäki's, and white is empty. So Malkamäki's proposal for change wins.
Yes. Yes. Ja. Yes. Toi edustajista tänne kohtaan 14
So for item 14, the RepCo will decide. Maybe you may set yourself, actually, with fulfillment of the committee, you may set yourself up as a candidate. So the work group may fulfill itself, so that my interpretation is that the current members of the work group can vote on who's being added. I'm available for chairperson and member. Can we get the appendix? One moment. So appendix 14 is the one that the group chairperson's chat has a link. Follows or Green or Aalto available for the work group. Any other comments, Malkamäki?
Malkamäki ja Aallon kokoomus. Ehdotan Jaakko Sireeniä.
No, proposing Jaakko Sireen.
Käytettävissä. Olettavasti
Or is it a 1 or 2 chairperson group?
Puheenjohtajan, eli tai yhden puheenjohtajan esitystekstin mukaan. Sun ei myöskään pakkoasettua puheenjohtajaksi, voit olla myös vaan jäsenenä siellä. Käyttävissä puheenjohtajaksi.
Available for chairpersonship. Other members or other chairpersonship. Pollari available for membership. Jonna Huikuri Kyltärirengas is not present but has set themselves up for the candidacy for the work group. So, closing this item for candidates and moving to the choice of chairperson. At this stage, I will ensure. Can we choose the personnel with openly or chairperson openly? Yes, it's okay. Let's interpret so that we'll choose it with open votes.
Could we get some kind of a presentation or introduction? Because we really don't know you. Not any kind of panel discussion, but we can have some kind of a short introduction from all candidates. I think I'm obstructed from making this decision since I'm chairing, but so we will change the chair. Yes, we have 2-minute introductory speeches from the candidates. We'll flip a coin on which starts, which of the candidates. Is it an official coin? The other says AYYE 2010 with AYYE logo, and the other side says the world's best student life. Difficult to tell which is head and which is tails. Film on which do you pick? The logo or the slogan?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry, the interpreter couldn't hear which he picked.
Ja sieltä tuli yliopiston logo.
Logo.
Saat päättää kumpi aloittaa.
Jaakko decides which of you starts, since you won the toss. I'm going to take out the official clock. Stopwatch. Yes, starts now. Yes, I'm Jaakko Sirén. And as the first vice chair as well. I was also in the Fishes in Guild senior advisor, and also been quite active in IT side in Otaniemi. There's a big surprise here that because of OTAX and roadmap challenges they caused, and a lot of communication problems as well. So how should we actually implement this? We need to consider that. And what I'd like to bring to the table to this working group is feedback from the field. So from the guilds and associations, not just special status associations, but others as well. We collect feedback from these interest groups, see how we can examine how we can make sustainable, cost-efficient solutions good for AYYE and the associations. I have experience in this, and also an IT expert, IT consultant myself. That's my introduction. Thank you. Yes, that took 72 seconds. The previous one. Yes, you can start. Hello, I'm Emil Fielman. I've been in the European Council for many years. Also part of associations that use a lot of IT services. And taking part in different associations that are in contact with IT services. So I have a kind of a good view on what will happen and what happens with the services. And also that means to find things out, to really find out what we do and what we should do. I study this field myself, doing projects related to this as well. So very interested in this topic and want to bring the best interest of our community. Yes, I think we can switch back the chairs. Or not yet, actually. Yes, not yet. We can now move on to the vote. So blue is for Emil Fielman as chair. And red is for Jaakko Sirén as chair of this working group. And yes, white is empty. Yes, it doesn't really matter whether the candidates vote or not, since they're going to vote themselves. Yes, I think we're ready to vote. Raise your slips now. I think it's clear red majority. Yes, I will withdraw my candidacy as chair, so I have only one candidate as a chair now. After this, yes, we can. We'll elect Jaakko Sirén as the chair of the digital and IT working group. Filman are interested in being a member of this working group, yes, we'll add your name to the working group as a member. Thank you for this. Yes. Anyone else to be added as members to this working group? Apparently not. So now I'm the chair, and we have Palosuo, Pollari, Filman, and Huikuri as members. And yes, if we decide as such, so you can be in touch with me, the chair of the working group, the members. Yes, we can decide this according to the agenda, the motion in the agenda. So we will establish the digital and IT working group. Moving to item 15, other business. Any other business? Also from vihreämpi Aalto. I've noticed the spring, this trend that the second year of this representative term is very challenging, very taxing for people, and we don't have enough people to have quorum, as happened today for the first hour. So, and I hope that we could have some kind of a discussion on this phenomenon. Maybe not today, but discuss this some way. And maybe what kind of solutions we could find. Maybe making the representative council more motivating, or maybe even consider switching the term to just 1 year. Thank you. And to follow up on this 1 year term proposal, and that we could look into this, of how it could happen, what it would mean, because we just always say that it's very heavy process, but maybe if we could do kind of more work to make it more routine-like. And looking into this, investigating on whether 1 year representative term would be a possibility. I would like to see that. Yes, I'd like to add to these 2 comments that our student union is young and energetic and wants to and willing to make changes and to think outside the box. So I think that we would also have the resources to make some certain experiments. So if we don't want to change the whole system, still, for example, we could try this kind of a new kind of system for 1 or 2 terms to make the representative council more and its activities more interesting and meaningful to members. Thank you. I think no. I think the 2 year term makes sense. But yes, I reckon it's a problem that we don't have enough people in the meetings for some reason. A question to the executive director. Do you remember to ask to open the elevator door for those with difficulties with mobility. Yes, I did, but it was actually asked to be open before. But yes, great. Let's continue with this. Oh yes, that's you. Yes, I kind of confuse people, but yes. Yes, you asked for it and someone came to ask to open it right after you. Yes, if there are no other business, we can close item 15, move to item 16, closing of the meeting. So we will close the meeting at 8:07.